They spoke with certainty, as if they knew what they were doing, as if it were a correct, clean, necessary decision. They said it was for the best, without hesitation, without a second thought. But what felt light at first now weighs heavily. It weighs on the body. It weighs in the silence. It weighs when no one else is around. It was said to be liberating, that each needed to move on, that time would take care of it. But time did not heal, it only revealed the absence. The absence didn't come with peace, it came with noise. It came with memories. It came with a ghostly presence that appears even in the simplest moments. It's easy to claim it was for self-love, for balance, for maturity. But what is felt now has nothing to do with maturity. It's lack. It's hidden regret. It's the desire to return to a place that can no longer be touched. They believed that separation was necessary, but no one explained how to live with the hole that remained. With the absence of everything that was small but made sense, now they try to move on. But the heart doesn't follow. The bed is too big. Laughter doesn't come the same way. The music that once brought lightness now suffocates. They said it was better this way, but they forgot to tell how to endure the days that would come after. Perhaps the mistake wasn't the decision, but the haste, the fear, the inability to recognize value while presence still existed. Because some things are only felt when they are no longer there, and some people are only realized when they are gone. Does this make sense to you so far? Write yes below. It's hard to admit, but now it's clear. It wasn't the right choice. It was just the easiest. It was simpler to distance than to face, simpler to give up than to stay, simpler to walk away than to sustain love in tough days. But what is simple is not always true, and now what's left is doubt. Is there still a path? Is there still a way back? Does the other still feel? Or was it only those who left who couldn't forget? Have you ever lived through something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this resonates with you, comment, "I needed to hear this." Because what hurts isn't just what was lost. It's knowing you were left by choice. It's realizing that the emptiness you feel today was built with your own hands. And now, do you pretend everything's okay, or do you face what remains? They said this with conviction, without looking back, without measuring what was left behind, without calculating what was being ripped away. They used confident words, phrases like, "It's best for me. I need to think about myself now. It's not working anymore." And maybe, in that moment, it sounded fair. Maybe it made sense, maybe it seemed rational. But time doesn't respect justifications. Time reveals. It shows what impulses tried to hide. It exposes the truth that haste disguised, and now there are no more words, no more justifications, only emptiness, a void where presence once was, a silence where interaction used to exist, a weight where there used to be space to breathe together. They said it was for the best, but now the absence has a voice, a cold, constant voice that appears in the calmest moments. It doesn't take much. Sometimes it's just a scent, a similar tone of voice, a name that pops up in the middle of any conversation, and suddenly everything comes rushing back. Memory is cruel when the heart hasn't healed yet, and it doesn't matter how much you try to fill the void. It doesn't matter how much you want to move forward. Some absences linger. Some companionship once experienced is never forgotten, because some connections leave a mark. Some encounters open fissures. Some relationships don't follow the rules of time. The mistake wasn't feeling. The mistake was believing that feelings could be discarded, as if it were just a phase, as if it were a choice. It wasn't, it never was. And now you try to pretend. You try to seem okay. You try to convince the world that the decision was right. But deep down, it's not right. It never was. Do you realize? Do you see that it wasn't the other person who was causing harm? It was the fear of being vulnerable. It was the discomfort of being seen up close. They said it was self-care, that it was necessary, that it was to avoid suffering. But the truth is that suffering came anyway, even while trying to avoid it. Because what you try to avoid comes back, and it comes back stronger, more real, more noticeable. Now the absence pulses. It turns into insomnia. It turns into anxiety. It turns into regret. And no one sees, because those on the outside think everything is fine. But inside, something is imploding, you know? And the worst part is realizing that there's no way to undo it. You can't go back and erase what was said. You can't relearn what was destroyed. You can't resume from the point where everything started to crumble, because when someone leaves, they take with them pieces that will never return. The routine is functioning, the body is in motion, but the soul is trapped back there, trapped in everything that wasn't said, trapped in the pauses that screamed, trapped in the cowardice of not having stayed. They said it was for the best, but today they don't even know how to justify it. Today they avoid talking about it. Today they pretend to forget, but they don't forget. How can you forget something that still lives on? How can you bury something that pulses every time the name comes up? How can you pretend it didn't exist, that which shaped so much? Do you feel this too? Have you ever lived something like this? Tell me in the comments, because the cruelest part wasn't the departure. It was the silence that remained afterward. It was realizing that what was being lived was stronger than any certainty. And still, it was interrupted by pride, by fear, by insecurity disguised as maturity, by unresolved exhaustion. And now all that remains is the echo of what could have been, of what almost was, of what was felt but didn't hold. And who made the decision now feels the absence, but doesn't know how to express it, doesn't know how to return, doesn't know if there's still space, if there's still reciprocity, because time hurts and pride paralyzes. Does this make sense to you so far? Write yes down below. It's as if every memory becomes more vivid after it's gone, as if the good parts gain even more strength, and what was uncomfortable now seems small. Do you notice this? That what used to irritate you is now missed, that the flaws that bothered you now seem irrelevant, that the tough days were in fact days spent with someone, and now there's no one left. If there was once friction, now there is only distance. If there used to be arguments, now there is silence. And sometimes silence hurts more than any fight. It hurts because there's no more exchange, no more response, no more chance to resolve things, only what remains to live with. What has gone, what was let go by choice, you had it and let it pass, not because it wasn't worth it, but because you didn't realize its value in time. And now you do. Too late. And it hurts. It hurts because no one can erase it from their mind. It hurts because no one can replace the right presence. It hurts because the heart is still there, trapped in an absence that won't fade away. Comment with a heart if you're on this journey too, because some losses aren't just the absence of someone, they are the loss of pieces of oneself, pieces that were built in that relationship, pieces that only existed close to the person who left, and no one talks about this. Everyone pretends that moving on is automatic, that moving forward is mandatory, that forgetting is simply a matter of willpower. But it's not. Moving on is slow, and forgetting doesn't happen. You only learn to carry it, to coexist, to transform the pain into something else. But the mark, it remains. And when you realize this, everything changes. Because it's no longer about trying to forget, but about accepting that something real is still there. Do you feel this? Then comment, I needed to hear this. Because there are people who only learn after they lose. There are decisions that only reveal their impact after they're made. There are choices that hurt forever. And there are loves that even when they end, never truly do. And the strangest part is realizing this only later, when the presence has turned into a memory, when the touch no longer exists, when the messages have stopped coming. But still, everything pulses as if it's still happening, as if there's something that has yet to be concluded. The truth is that it hasn't. And deep down, those who lived it know. They know it didn't have an end. It had an escape. They escaped from intensity. They escaped from truth. They escaped from commitment. Because feeling too much frightens those who never learned to give themselves entirely, who only learned to control, to measure, to keep emotional distance, and what was supposed to be healing became a wound, a silent wound, invisible, camouflaged under routines and justifications. But no justification resolves what the heart still feels. No answer closes the question that remains open. No new beginning fills the space left when one departed impulsively. Have you felt this? Felt your body moving on while your soul remained trapped in a time that won't return? Felt the urge to turn back but couldn't find the door anymore? Felt that the silence that seemed peaceful was actually a muted despair? If you've felt this, comment, "This is about me," because this type of absence is not common. It changes what comes after. It changes the way of loving, it changes the way of trusting, it changes what is expected from others. And not because the person was perfect, but because what was lived there was real, and real is rare. Some say it was necessary, some continue acting as if it was the right choice, but every time the name comes up, the stomach turns, the heart races, the mind freezes. The absence has become a constant presence, a silent presence, yet it screams between the lines, in the details, in solitary moments, at bedtime, in the gaps between one conversation and another, on those days when everything seems normal, but something inside is missing, because there are things that cannot be explained, they can only be felt. And the worst part is that many times you only realize this too late. The understanding comes afterward. It comes when the other person has already grown tired. It comes when there are no more messages to respond to. It comes when you seek a reaction, and no one is left on the other side. That's when the truth appears. You lost, and it was your choice. Not because you were betrayed, not because you were rejected, but because you didn't know how to stay. You didn't stay. You chose to leave. You chose to be silent. You chose to let go, and now you feel. You don't know whether to speak. You don't know whether to insist. You don't know if there's still a place for you. And maybe there isn't anymore, because sometimes those who leave come back too late, and those who waited grow tired. Tired of being what they feel while the other tries not to feel. Tired of being present in a world where everything is replaceable. Tired of being intense in a time where everything is fleeting. And what remains? It's just you, with your conscience, with your memories, with the choices that now seem like mistakes. And it's at this point that you realize the problem was never the other person. It was the way you didn't know how to care. It was the distance you pretended didn't matter. It was the pride you called dignity, but it wasn't. It was just fear. Fear of loving and not being enough. Fear of giving yourself and losing yourself. Fear of needing and being left behind. So you left first. To avoid being left behind, you distanced yourself to not have to face it. But now the pain is here, whole, silent, genuine, and you have no escape from it. Does this make sense to you up to this point? Comment, "It does," if this text is resonating with you, because there's something no one talks about. The pain of the absence you caused yourself is crueler than that of someone who was left, because the other can still say they tried. You cannot. You left before your time. You closed the door before hearing what needed to be said. You believed that the best thing was to step away, and today you feel like there's nowhere to return. And maybe there is still space. Maybe there is still affection. But now it's not enough to just want, because there are wounds that time doesn't heal. Healing is for those who stay. Healing comes to those who care. Healing comes to those who stay. And if you didn't stay, you need to deal with what that left inside you, with that nameless void, with that hidden regret, with that desire to go back that no one else can resolve for you. Are you feeling this right now? Then let me ask you something. What would you do if you knew there's still time? Would you have the courage to tell the truth? Would you put your pride aside? Would you ask to stay, or would you keep pretending everything is fine? Comment below. I'm reading. And share this with someone who needs to reflect on it, because the hardest part isn't losing. It's realizing you lost, for not knowing how to appreciate, for not having the courage to stay. But now, not even silence can sustain that choice anymore. They told you time would heal, but time only laid bare the truth that was ignored. You didn't want to leave. You just didn't know how to stay. And now in the midst of this deafening absence, you realize that what left still pulses within, that what was left behind still screams for attention. You've tried to move on. You've worn the mask of "I'm fine." You've smiled with your lips while your heart cried in silence, but some emptiness can't be disguised. Some presence, even when far away, remains in everything, and some feelings resist, even when you try to kill them inside. Does it hurt? Yes. It hurts to realize that what was lost was pushed away by you. It hurts to remember the conversations you didn't have the courage to continue, the messages you left unanswered, the silent pleas you pretended not to hear. And now your heart demands it back, demands what you didn't know how to live. If this is hitting you hard, comment, "Yes, it does" below. Because what no one told you is that absence is also a choice. That lack of action creates scars, and that omission hurts just as much as rejection. Do you see this now? Do you see that the words you held back haunt you today? That the doors you closed now seem to be the only way out? It's tough, but it's real. And even trying to convince others, and yourself, that you did the right thing, the body doesn't lie. The soul doesn't lie. The memory doesn't lie. Because when the feeling was genuine, it doesn't disappear. It only transforms into longing, into insomnia, into regret. And if all of this makes sense to you, then comment, "This is about me." Because sometimes the only way to start healing is to admit that it hurt, that it still hurts, and that maybe there's still something inside that hasn't been closed off. If this text resonated with you, give it a like so more people who need to feel this truth can see it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next content, and share it with someone who needs to reflect on what hasn't been said yet, because some things are only realized after they're lost.